So today we have Sri Ravilochanan ji, who is the founder member of Indic Collective. This is a collective of activists, intellectuals, and civil liberties advocates who are pursuing legal actions and other initiatives to usher in an Indic renaissance. So recently, Indic Collective, along with the KBSV Bharat, which is Kshetra Bhumi Samrakshana Vedhi Bharat, they have filed a PIL in Kerala High Court. So I would like to begin by asking you, Raviji, what this PIL is about and why is it so important?
Pranam. See, I believe some amount of background information is required here to even understand why this PIL has been filed. Kerala was literally God's own country in the sense that temples used to own huge tracts of agricultural lands. Post-independence, when land reforms legislations were enacted, they were applied to temple lands as well. And this resulted in temples losing their lands and thus a huge portion of their annual revenue. Temples in Kerala used to be centers where Annadana happened on large scale. They also had Vedic Patishalas attached to them. They had Goshalas attached to them. They even had enough money to run educational institutions in the premises of the temple itself. Moreover, the revenue of the temples from these lands ensured that the daily rituals as well as the utsavas, the annual utsavas, were able to be performed without any hindrance. There was no worry about the financial requirement for the temple's day-to-day as well as annual activities. Where the land reforms legislations were applied to the temples, we see that temples lost these revenues. Now the legislations themselves are interesting because they do give some amount of compensation, or rather they guarantee some compensation to the temples every year. They say that an annuity shall be paid to religious institutions which have been affected by these legislations. We have taken up two legislations in our PIL. One is Kerala Land Reforms Act. The other is Sri Pandaravaka Lands Vesting and Enfranchisement Act. Now, the former act is about all the temples, or rather all the lands in Kerala, not just temples, whereas the later act is specifically about Sri Pandaravaka lands which were owned by Padmanabha Swami Temple of Thiruvananthapuram. Both the acts say that an annual annuity shall be paid as compensation for income loss. But this annuity itself doesn't seem to really compensate for the income loss. Moreover, no kind of revision in the annuity has been made. In the case of Padmanabha Swami Temple, some 12,600 acres were vested with the government, in lieu of which only 58,500 is paid as annual compensation. And even this amount has not been paid in the past 2 years, as per the RTA reply we received. So in our PIL, we have requested that the annuity has to be calculated as per the rents which those lands can earn now. So a proper compensation has to be given to the temples, which will make the temples independent in the sense that they can have the luxury of being run in a very proper manner, and the excess funds can be used for the benefit of the Hindu society as well. The poor need not remain hungry anymore. Annadanam can be started in most of the temples. There are so many other activities which can be run by the temples parallelly out of these funds. We have also stated that for all these years of low compensation, the government has to pay a restitution with interest.
Interesting. So this is another example of secular lawmaking.
Yes.
And before we move ahead, can you just give our listeners a sense of the land holdings we are talking about and how much is the potential revenue that temples have lost out on?
The exact amount of lands which have been vested in the government through these two acts is not known to us. While we know that Sri Pandaravaka lands were about 12,600 acres, in the case of Kerala Land Reforms Act, the government has not really come out with any sort of a declaration stating that these many lakhs of acres of lands have been taken from temples. On the other hand, if we just look at the popular temples of Kerala, we can understand how much lands might have been lost in total. Guruvayur Sri Krishna temple alone lost some 13,000 acres. A comparatively smaller temple, a Trivegapura, which is a Shiva temple, it lost about 3000 acres of land. Now, Trivegapura is not a very popular temple. It can be called as, a grade B temple, where temples like Tripunitura or Ernakulam Shiva temple or the Guruvayur Sri Krishna temple can be called as grade A temples based on the popularity. So, when even a grade B temple has lost 3000 acres on its own, we are very sure that the total amount of lands lost by the temples will be in several lakhs of acres. We presume it might be at the bare minimum 2 lakh acres. Well, there is a very good possibility that the actual amount lost would be anything close to 5.5 lakh acres as well. Because in southern Kerala, that was the status before the government had taken over all the lands and started paying an annual compensation to the temples. And this was even pre-independence. So northern Kerala should have a similar amount of land holdings. And so if we look at the amount of land holdings that have been lost, even a very fair rent assumption would give several thousands of crores as annual rent for these lands. Sri T.R. Ramesh had made a back of hand calculation for the lands with HRNC run temples of Tamil Nadu and stated that the annual income should be more than 6,000 crores. I won't be surprised if a similar amount is seen as the possible rent from all these lands which have been vested in the government in Kerala, because in Kerala the population density is higher, lands tend to be costlier in general, and given the fact that many of the agricultural lands have now become non-agricultural lands, even urban lands, the actual compensation that should be paid to the temples should be very high. So you can just consider that it should run in a few thousands of crores every year.
In the Kerala budget 2018, only a total of 1 crore rupees was paid as annuity under the Kerala Land Reforms Act. Is that right?
Yeah, it is right. We have mentioned it in our PIL. In fact, in our PIL, our, you can say our plea is very simple. We are saying that the annuity from these lands have to be properly assessed, or rather the rent from these lands, probable rent from these lands should be properly assessed, and the annuity has to be paid based on that. And for all these years of low payment, you have to compensate us with a penal interest. And finally, we are saying that where no annuity has been paid for the land, you please give the lands back to us. Us in the sense of temples. Because the temples belong to us. So let the temples get back those lands, because you have not really compensated us at all, and so you're illegally holding them.
Okay, so I just want to make this clear that the temples are currently being paid a pittance of just 1 crore rupees for the lakhs of acres that the government has taken over under the Land Reforms Act. That's a mind-boggling sum, just a small sum of 1 crore rupees. And the other aspect you have raised in your petition is that a lot of this land has also been encroached.
Yeah, see, apart from whatever lands have been taken away by the government, the temple still owns some 25,000 acres of land in total across Malabar. So the average land holding per temple will be less than 10 acres in that case. But now the problem is, whoever is holding these lands, they are not paying money, and the temple anyway doesn't have revenue to even go to court to, get the rent realized in any manner.
Okay. Now the other thing is, who actually controls the temple management today? We talk about Devaswom boards. Can you just explain what this is?
See, Devaswom boards are statutory bodies formed by Kerala government through various acts. There are 5 Devaswom boards in Kerala. Travancore Devaswom board and Cochin Devaswom board were formed in 1950.
There is also a Devaswom minister in Kerala.
Yeah, it is similar to your HRNC minister in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and other places. He is supposed to look after the Devaswom department. All the 5 Devaswom boards, they fall under his ministry. They claim that the government is not misusing the funds of the temple.
And I remember an interesting news about this current Devaswom minister from the CPM party. I believe he was an active participant in a beef festival some time back.
Yes, of course. I was about to come to that. See, there are 2-3 issues here. One, the government claims that they are not misusing capital funds, which is questionable because there are cases where money from Guruvayur Devaswom board was used for development projects in Guruvayur to set up sewage facilities or drinking water facilities, which are supposed to be done by the government. It is not the duty of a private temple to fund these activities. But the government has taken money from the temple for these activities, which essentially means that the government is looting the temple. And the other problem is, though technically the various acts say that Hindus among the legislators and Hindus among the council of ministers select these members of the Devaswom board, or that only a Hindu can be a minister of Devaswom board ministry. Who is a Hindu is always becoming issue now. Whether he should be a Hindu who believes in temple and the rituals. And if you take the case of Kerala, we have a good number of communists. The current government is communist government. The Devaswom minister himself eats beef. Naturally, he doesn't really believe in all the Hindu codes of conduct. But still, he claims to be a Hindu and he's the Devaswom minister. So, you can say that the real Hindus have been deprived of any sort of real say in temple management.
So basically anybody with a Hindu sounding name is qualified, so to speak, to be a part of.
Yeah, of course, they can just claim that they are Hindu and attempt for this. And anyway, it is a good position. It gives you jobs. You may become a trustee. You may become a minister. And even as Devaswom employees, they are considered to be government employees, and so they are paid at the same scale. So it has become a racket.
So now you're saying that Devaswom board is essentially a government body which is controlling at least all the major temples in Kerala, right?
Yeah.
Now, do we have a similar body for churches or mosque properties?
Of course not. Not at all.
Okay.
Only Hindu temples have been taken over. And in fact, a couple of years ago, if I'm not wrong, when a proposal came up to set up an audit committee for church properties, and it was not even for the government to take over, just to do an audit. There was a very strong opposition to it, and the idea was dropped.
Now, Article 26 of the Constitution says that all communities have the right to manage their own religious institutions, with a caveat that this doesn't prevent the state from making any law regulating economic, financial, political, or other secular activities associated with that religious practice. So, just as a layperson reading this law, it looks like this can be applied not just to temples but to any religious institution, whether it's a church or a mosque. But in practice, is that being done?
It has never been done in practice. Only Hindu temples have been targeted using this provisions, you can say, of regulation rather. But even otherwise, there is another problem here. If you look at the same Article 26, you will see that the religious denominations have a right to administer the properties of their institutions. Okay? And now what has happened is the government has taken over those properties without due compensation. Thereby we say that they have actually violated our fundamental right as a religious denomination of temple-going Hindus. I have a fundamental right to administer the properties of my institutions, and this essentially means that the government shall not take over properties of my religious institutions unless they pay a full compensation. And as you pointed out earlier, 1 crore rupees for several lakhs of acres is certainly not a fair compensation.
Right. And I just want to point out again that, I think the rationale offered for taking over most of our temples has been some allegation of mismanagement in, finances. But we have seen so many cases of allegations against the church as well. For example, in Kerala recently, the Syro-Malabar Catholic Church, the Archbishop has been accused by Christians, themselves of some shady land deal. and we have seen similar cases in Goa also. But that's never used as a reason for taking over of church property.
Yeah, it is never used as a reason, and moreover, the cardinal, very openly stated that he is bound only with the canon law of the Vatican.
Yeah,
the government doesn't even have a right to
question him.
Question him.
And he said this in the High Court.
The court has not been very keen to accept this argument, but still, it just shows the amount of insular status that they have compared to temples where taking over a temple has been pretty easy for the government over the years. And compare this with the Parthasarathy temple in Guruvayur, where the temple was in a dilapidated condition. The locals, poured their funds and they rebuilt the temple. The temple had been destroyed by Tipu Sultan during one of his invasions, so it has been rebuilt after a period of almost 170 years or so. Now, after the temple has been rebuilt and the local Hindus have been managing it in a very good manner, suddenly last year the Malabar Devaswom board decided to take over the temple under their management, and they have done it as well. They even brought police force to forcefully acquire the temple management by throwing out the local devotees who were opposing government interference.
So these Devaswom boards are, at the end of the day, they are semi-autonomous bodies, right? Although they do report to the government. So my question was, this petition that you have filed is essentially you are fighting on behalf of the Devaswom boards against the government of Kerala. So have you got any support from them?
Not really. Not really. In fact, I don't expect them to support us because at the end of the day, the members themselves are, appointed by the government. And had they really kept the interest of temples in their mind, they would have done it by now. I mean, they would have filed such a case themselves. They have not done it.
Okay.
Because it has been decades since the Land Reforms Act has been passed. And it is very clear that throughout all these years, temples have been deprived of their rightful income. And you have never seen any case by any Devaswom board member till now against this injustice.
Shocking. All right. So can you tell us about where the case stands today? Has the petition been accepted? Is there a next hearing coming up?
The next hearing will come up in a fortnight or so. The bench has accepted our petition, the division bench in the Kerala High Court. And they have given 3 weeks time for government to get back with details regarding lands which have been vested in the government during the Land Reforms Act, the annuities that has been calculated, the method of calculation, and whether they have been paid or not. All these details have been asked. We have to wait and see what the government responds now.
All right. Well, we thank you a lot, Raviji, for talking to us. And we'll sign off with a request to all Hindus to donate generously to Indic Collective. The site is www.indiccollective.org. And we wish you all the best in your fight to remove the legal and institutional roadblocks holding us back from an Indic renaissance. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikramji. Thanks a lot for giving us this platform. Thank you.